What if the story you believed about Hollywood's happiest marriage was never the real story at all? For nearly 3 decades, Hugh Jackman and Deborra-Lee Furness were sold as proof that fame didn't ruin love. The age gap didn't matter. The rumors were noise. The smiles were real. Or at least, that's what we were told. Then, after 27 years of marriage, Deborra-Lee filed for divorce and used one word that quietly detonated the entire fairy tale. Not heartbreak, not growing apart, not different paths. She said, betrayal. And that word changes everything. Because betrayal doesn't mean love faded. It doesn't mean 2 people drifted. Betrayal means someone knew something and someone else didn't. It means a truth existed long before it was spoken out loud. And according to multiple reports, Deborra-Lee wasn't talking about a single moment. She was talking about being the last person to know what everyone else already suspected. So if this wasn't a peaceful separation, if this wasn't just personal growth, then what was really happening behind the scenes of Hollywood's most admired marriage? Because once you look past the polished statements and perfect red carpet smiles, a very different story starts to emerge. And that surface story everyone believed, that was only the beginning. Long before Hugh Jackman was a global name, Deborra-Lee Furness already was one. In the mid-90s, she wasn't the wife, she was the professional in the room, trained in New York, 2 decades deep into her career, lead roles, international credits, real industry respect. When she walked onto a set, people knew who she was, not because of who she was married to, but because she'd already put in the work. Hugh, meanwhile, was 27 years old and completely unknown. Fresh out of drama school, no blockbuster roles, no fame, no leverage. Their first meeting wasn't 2 equals colliding at the top. It was a rising actor meeting a woman who had already arrived. And when they married in 1996, there was no prenup. Not because of blind optimism, but because she was the one with the career, the connections, and the earning power. At that moment, the future looked obvious. She was the foundation, he was the gamble. That single decision, no prenup, would quietly shape everything that came after. Because no one could have predicted that the unknown actor would soon become a $250 million brand, or that the woman who backed him before anyone else believed would one day be fighting for her share of the empire she helped make possible. And then came the moment that rewrote his life. In the year 2000, everything changed. Hugh Jackman landed Wolverine. One role, one movie, and overnight, the unknown actor became a global phenomenon. The film exploded at the box office, launching a franchise, and launching Hugh into a level of fame no one in their circle had imagined. Red carpets replaced auditions, Hollywood doors swung open, and suddenly the power dynamic in the marriage flipped. Publicly, Hugh made sure the world knew who stood beside him. Anniversary posts poured in, speeches filled with praise. He called Deborra-Lee his rock, his anchor, the reason he stayed grounded while fame tried to swallow him whole. To the outside world, it looked like devotion, like gratitude, like a man who never forgot who believed in him first. And for years, that image held. Every smile, every tribute, every interview reinforced the same message. This marriage is unbreakable. But public worship doesn't guarantee private honesty. Sometimes it does the opposite, because the louder the performance, the harder it becomes to notice when something underneath starts to change. And that change didn't arrive loudly. It came quietly. Subtle at first. Then came Broadway. During Hugh's run in The Music Man, something shifted behind the curtains. Sutton Foster, a 2-time Tony winner with her own Broadway legacy, wasn't just another co-star. She was someone who commanded attention, on stage and off. Whispers started to circulate among the cast and crew. Long looks, private moments, connections that seemed more than professional. People noticed, but kept quiet. Maybe it was loyalty, maybe it was fear, or maybe everyone just assumed it was none of their business. To the outside world, the show went on as usual, but backstage, the first ripples of an unraveling story were quietly forming. At first, it was just whispers, then came the clues. then the small signs becoming impossible to ignore. March 2022. During a performance, Hugh Jackman gets the entire audience to sing Happy Birthday to Sutton Foster. At the time, it looked like a simple, playful gesture, but in hindsight, it read differently, almost like a public declaration, subtle yet unmistakable to those paying attention. Backstage, cast members allegedly noticed moments that went beyond casual friendship. Long embraces during intermission, private time in dressing rooms, the kind of connection that the world outside wouldn't see, but the people inside couldn't ignore. And then the first public signal appeared. Gossip blogger Tasha Lustig claimed Hugh had blindsided his wife, running off with his co-star. Hours later, one of Deborah's closest friends confirmed, "You are on point. My beloved friend Deb is about to have her glow up." Deborah herself reportedly liked the post from a private account, a small, almost invisible gesture, yet it spoke volumes. Once that like went public, the whole narrative cracked. The picture-perfect story of Hollywood's perfect marriage suddenly looked very different. Then came the public announcement. September 2023, Hugh and Deborah released a joint statement, amicable, loving, growing apart. The world nodded in agreement. Hollywood's nicest guy, his devoted wife. Just two people quietly moving in different directions. That was the story everyone wanted to believe. But behind the cameras, the reality was far more complicated. The split didn't move quickly. The absence of a prenup loomed over them. A $250 million fortune hung in the balance. Every negotiation, every conversation carried weight. The polished public story clashed sharply with what sources say was happening behind closed doors. And then came the word that changed everything. May 27, 2025, Deborra-Lee filed for divorce, and with it came a single word that spoke louder than any statement, any interview, or any red carpet smile: betrayal. It wasn't heartbreak, it wasn't fading love. According to multiple reports, sources claim it was the realization that she had been kept in the dark, while whispers and signs had circulated all around her. The story everyone had accepted, of a couple quietly growing apart, suddenly fractured. Rumors suggest that during the Music Man run, a connection had formed between Hugh and Sutton Foster, one that Deborah may have quietly sensed but was never openly acknowledged. Finding out the truth, sources say, wasn't just painful, it was confirmation of her intuition, a validation of suspicions that had haunted her for years. But what does this mean for the people involved? How do you measure a marriage not just by love, but by honesty, respect, and the secrets left unspoken? By January 2025, Hugh went public with Sutton Foster, holding hands in Santa Monica. There were photos, appearances, smiles, but no direct acknowledgement of the whispers, the overlapping timelines, or the questions everyone was asking. Silence became part of the story. Deborah, meanwhile, reportedly felt a sense of relief. Her intuition, the quiet voice she had trusted for years, had been right all along. She didn't collapse under the weight of betrayal. She moved forward with clarity. In the months after the divorce, Deborah returned to Australia, diving into film projects and surrounding herself with friends who had supported her through the storm. She didn't seek revenge or public pity. She simply reclaimed her life. Through it all, her children, Oscar, 24, and Ava, 19, watched the drama unfold. But even in the eye of the storm, Deborah maintained her composure, showing that strength isn't measured by avoiding pain, it's measured by how you rise after it. And this isn't just celebrity gossip. For 27 years, the headlines never let Deborra-Lee forget the 13-year age gap between her and Hugh. Every article mentioned it, every gossip column hinted at it, every public comment carried an unspoken question: how long until he trades up? The narrative painted her as the lucky wife, the supportive partner of a rising star. But the lived reality was far different. She wasn't luck. She was talent, grit, and unwavering professionalism. The one who gave an unknown actor his first break, defended him through decades of tabloids, and built a life with intention and care. When she walked away, Deborah didn't just leave a marriage, she left the illusion, the story that the world had been sold. She walked away with her self-respect intact, her integrity uncompromised, and a life defined by her own terms, not by the luck of being someone else's partner. Sometimes the headlines tell a story, sometimes the pictures show a perfect marriage, but the real story? It's the one behind the story, the quiet truths, the hidden moments, the choices that define who we really are. And in Deborra-Lee's case, that story was one of courage, clarity, and reclaiming her own life.